Sometimes, just when you look up, there's a light which brings your mind back to another place and sometimes another time. And I've just looked up and seen this light. Not necessarily through the window, but the light that's shining on the desk, and especially the little pelmet at the back of the desk. Interesting, isn't it? I want to show you a new aspect to container gardening, which as you progress with all your containers and it begins to look like a garden rather than a collection of containers, you can start then to move them around a little bit, separate them up, because the plants will grow spectacularly well if you feed them and water them and care for them. And so what I've done this morning, I've actually got some of the containers and moved them on. So I've moved them up around this bay tree. Just get out of the sun's rays there. And made a little collection to enlarge the garden. And you can see I've staged some of them on top of old pots. I've put some of them into some beautiful old containers. I've put a log down there as a boundary, just to keep them safe. And I've put a candlestick holder out here with the Buddha head on top. And then some of the larger plants I've grouped at the back. So it's a case of regrouping and enlarging the garden. Now I'll just take it from the other side here, so you can see. There we go. Patsy's sitting in the sun, listening to the birds and watching the bees. So it doesn't appear to diminish any of the container garden already established, just by moving a few things out and continuing to create. I happen to be in my rather beguiling dressing gown and bed socks. They're lovely Aran socks, very warm, because it was cold last night. And my old clogs. And I'm just getting my coffee together. So today I'm going to be planting this little oak tree that I grew from a seed. And it's been in the pot for, well, I've repotted it on. And I think it's reached its planting out potential now. A little bit of damage there on the side, but you know, that's going to add to the beautiful individuality of the tree as it grows. And you can see there's little mushrooms down there growing in the pot. That's because I've put a lot of my homemade compost in there that I integrate with wood chips and all kinds of stuff. So it's a very healthy looking tree. Look at the leaves. Beautiful. One of my little babies, ready to leave the nest, planting her out from the nest. Today, I'll show you. Now, something that's worth saying at this point is that, albeit this is a container garden here in the little courtyard of Bealton the cottage, at the back of the cottage, A lot of these plants will be going into the ground at the end of the season, and the pots will be used then for yet more plants, because have you noticed I'm continually growing plants and trees. I take cuttings, I do divisions, I plant seeds, I take home little babies I find on the side of the road, and they're all grown on here. So as with the oak tree over there that I'm going to be planting today, I'm looking around at other plants. This is a beautiful little birch sitting in a pot full of flowers. There's a cotoneaster, which is reaching its pot potential and will be going into the ground. This is a rowan tree, beautiful rowan tree, has grown, it's actually tripled in size in the pot, but I do feed them well. And so on and so forth. There's so many plants here. Like another example here is this beautiful forsythia. So they'll either be going into new pots, bigger pots, or I'll be planting them out. The joy of container gardening, it just goes on into infinity. And I must show you just while I'm here, the beautiful castor oil plant. Is it a castor oil plant? I think it is. My eldest daughter got me this, and it was just a baby. Yes, here is a castor oil plant, which I have repotted. It's now gone into its biggest pot. It's not going to get any bigger than that in terms of pot. So that should do it for the next couple of years, hopefully. And I've put it into this position. I may move it back a little bit against the wall of the studio as the winter approaches. But yeah, that has doubled, maybe I'd say tripled in size just since she bought it for me. I think it was for my birthday in October. Yeah. So this represents a little bit of plant engineering. This is actually a bay tree, one of my many, many bay trees which I grew from cuttings. And its roots are very restricted in this pot. I mean, it's a fairly big pot. It's a tall one, but a slim one. As a consequence, the leaves get smaller and smaller, and it becomes quite unlike a bay tree, but a very interesting look. I've shifted some of the pots around as well, because as plants get bigger, a container garden needs to be adjusted. And I'm going to show you, look at all the primroses that have self-seeded here in the gravel, just masses of them. So I've got this absolutely stunning rhododendron, and that's in this huge pot. And I'm going to be pruning that at the end of the summer, just to give it that beautiful sort of oriental garden shape, which I think goes really well with the water butt there sitting beside it. Yeah, container gardens can be a lot of fun. This is another little tree. It's actually a Scots pine that my youngest daughter got me years ago. Don't know how many years now, maybe 3 years ago. She got me the pot and the tree to go in it. It was a little bare-rooted tree because the pot was so expensive. I thought, I can't have her spending too much. So we got a little bare-rooted tree, which was literally a couple of euros. And I've been pruning it and shaping it ever since. Again, to give it that lovely sort of interesting Japanese look. Is that the word I'm looking for? You know what I mean anyway. Yeah. And this is yet another tree which I need to plant out. It's a green beech. How do I know I need to plant it out? The leaves are starting to get smaller. So I think it's come to its full root capacity in that pot. See the pot? And I've got some London Pride in the pot with it, and I've got some Campanula. And the Campanula comes up every year around it in the pot. I love this plant. It's so giving. Yeah. And that's in front of a lovely Mahonia with Sweet Sicily on its right-hand side, or left as I'm looking at it. Fuchsia in the background, ribes above it, and another beautiful green beech growing from 2 tires that the Buddha is sitting upon. And here's a little piece of Campanula that I had growing in a tiny pot, because I'm forever taking little cuttings and divisions, and it's got too big for the tiny pot, so I've popped it into a hanging basket. I think that's going to give it a beautiful display in a few weeks' time. I love it when I come across little things like this, a clump of daisies growing almost out of the roots of the beautiful sycamore tree. Isn't that lovely? So this little path that leads up towards the stone circle has become so shaded with all the beautiful trees that the grass is getting sparser and the leaf fall is just creating natural paths. You know, this love affair that I have with trees just keeps growing bigger and bigger. Like the trees themselves, like my beautiful oak. Look at this. I say my beautiful oak as though it's the only one, and it's not. I've got, I don't know, maybe 20 oaks in the garden, maybe more. One of these days I'm going to count all my trees, log them all, name them all. Yeah, let's work for another day. Now, the dogwood that I didn't cut back has beautiful little flowers coming up on it. And I've just spied lots of red currants. Well, they haven't gone red yet, but they will be going red. It is only the 3rd week in May. Let's have a look at the old hen house. See what's going on up here. Now I'm going to be working on the structure of this over the course of the autumn and winter because it's worth keeping. There's so many trees that I have yet to pollard and to coppice. I mean, the amount of timber, the amount of wood for the stoves on these 3 acres is crazy, really. There's still some hawthorn blossom out. The mahogany has put on so much new foliage, and the ferns have increased. All over the 3 acres, I now have an abundance of ferns. Ah, look at this beautiful foxglove. It's magnificent. It's self-seeded, growing in its natural setting in amongst the trees. Isn't that lovely? No, I'd forgotten that I'd planted some clematis up here as well in the stone circle. Well, just on the edge of the stone circle. I'll have to do a little bit of tidying up because it's rambling further than what I thought it would ramble. What do you think of this candy pink fuchsia? Isn't that something to behold? Now, I doubt very much if you've seen that at the Chelsea Flower Show. It's so gracious looking, look at it. And yet here it is in the woodland, thriving in the woodland, just hanging over the stone circle. Now, talking about hanging over the stone circle, you can see where the circle is. Look at the fuchsia. Look at that. Isn't that something? There we go. Is it little wonder that I keep referring to Beelton Cottage, the 3 acres, as magical? I mean, look at the height of this fuchsia. It must be 15 or 20 foot high. It's got these incredibly delightful flowers on it in the most unusual colour. It grew from literally sticking a piece straight into the soil. Amazing.